What did she just say? Every single day you make at least 8 cancer cells. Every day. Your immune system's walking around going, you're so out of here. You're so out of here. You're so out of here. So thank your immune system. All right? But once in a while it slips through. So knowing that our immune system is protecting us, okay, for a cancer to survive, it needs to keep changing its DNA complement. It's kind of like, it's like Alien or something. You know the movie? You know, it's like we're the host, and it has to keep changing the codes on our DNA in order to get around our immune system. That's what's going on. Usually by the time they find a tumor, a solid tumor like a breast tumor, it's probably about 10 or 20 years old. So your immune system is trying to take care of you. Now, this is where all the action is in cancer research right now, something called biomarkers and therapeutic targets. I'll go real quick. We need better ways to diagnose cancer than and squishing it in the plates. Okay, let's be honest, right? And I always say, you know it was a man who invented it. Because they don't do that for prostate cancer. You think that's funny? So anyway, so we need better ways of diagnosing cancer. The most holy grail divine thing would be that, you know, we go in for our annual exam, they can do a blood test and say, hey, you know, we think you got something going on somewhere. Let's go find it. So there's actually a lot of work actually trying to find the molecular signatures that define cancer and allow us to develop tests that would, you know, just be a tool that doctors can use. The other thing is if we find the molecular signatures, the keys for cancer, each one of those keys now becomes a new target for the development of therapy. And the cool thing is, it is holy grail time. If we can find molecules that are only in a cancer cell and not in a normal cell, those molecules, and we can make compounds that only see the ones that are in the cancer cell, and since it's not in a normal cell, just think we could give people therapy that would knock out the cancer and leave the normal cells alone. It would be wonderful. We could really effectively treat people, because right now one of the reasons we can't effectively treat people is because their poor bodies can't handle the poisons we're giving it. Let's be honest, by and large we're giving people poison when we're doing cancer therapy. So that's where it's at, and that's that kitten. That kitten is looking for, that's a targeting a molecule there. Yeah, okay, next. Okay, hey, the revolution is already here. This sci-fi thing where I'm talking about here, where, you know, we're going to find targets and molecules that go for it, it's been done. We have at least 2 clear examples of this. This is a cover from 2000. A revolution had begun. People are like, I don't know, this is magnificent. It's something called Gleevec. Now, Gleevec is a drug that was made to target a molecule in something called a leukemia. It's called CML. When CML was first diagnosed, and you're the doctor, you can tell me this, it usually has like a 95% mortality rate, right? So the scientists are, you know, doing their scientist thing, and then they eventually figure out that there is a novel protein in the cancer cell, the leukemia cell, that's not in a normal cell. And then they said, you know, I wonder if we could make a drug that would attack only that protein. And they did. It's called Gleevec. Now, the way they used to treat CML, they'd have to hook you up to an IV and pump drugs into you. You were really, really sick. Gleevec, they take it at lunch, and they go back to work. The revolution is now. Another drug that's amazing is Herceptin. It's a breast cancer drug. The revolution is coming. Next slide. So real quick now. So I always say Linda's science story is really, I'm just Alice. To be very honest, I am Alice. And I just saw the rabbit, and it was going down the hole, And I said, oh, what the heck? And I went down the hole with it. As you had so kindly pointed out, if I could have the next slide, I am the mother of this entity called the DNA synthesome. I just found it when I was a postdoc. And you say, well, that's nice. Well, remember this. You know that 3 feet of DNA in every one of your nuclei? That's the machine that makes it. I found it. All right. And I walk all over the country, and people go, oh, Dr. Malkas, we love this synthesome and that, blah, blah, blah. It's really, I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm probably going to have this on my headstone someday. I really am. So anyway, so what we did was, now remember when I told you about cancer cells having this mutation, making mutations all the time so they can evolve and get around the immune system? So I said, they're making mutations. I wonder if my machine, my synthesome, is involved in that. Well, the long story, the short story of it, is it is. It's changed in cancer cells. And we were able to figure out that one of the proteins that was involved in that change is something called PCNA, proliferating cell nuclear antigen, for those who care. Okay? PCNA is different in cancer cells. So I work very closely with my husband, Dr. Robert Hickey. Yes, I let him keep his name. Okay? And we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day. Yes, we're just like that. Well, so Bob goes, hey, you know, Linda, you know, that could potentially help in diagnosis, couldn't it? And I was like, yeah. And then, of course, then the noodle goes, you know, I'm like, oh, yeah, let's make an antibody. Don't worry about what an antibody is. Let's make a detector to see if we can see it. Next slide. We did. You can't see it too well because of the fluorescent. But the bottom line is that there are commercial antibodies to PCNA. And the whole thing is this is normal tissue. This is malignant tissue. The antibodies that are out there, the commercial antibodies, can't tell the difference between normal and malignant. But our antibody can tell cancer from normal. Very cool. Next slide. Is now we're actually moving her into the clinic and making a stain that pathologists can use. And if cells turn brown, it means that that protein is there. It means that it's a cancer cell. So here you have normal breast tissue, invasive breast cancer. And actually, this is metastatic. This is actually a lymph node. Isn't that amazing? Cool. Now, I can tell you this. For all those guys who always been asking me about prostate cancer, it's not just a breast cancer thing. If I can have the next slide. So that detector, it works on all cancer. It's a change that's fundamental to all cancer. And this is work from Liang Chang down at IU, where he was looking at the expression or the presence of that marker, that CA-PCNA. And you can see it's very highly expressed in cancer cells and not in normal cells. And it's totally cool, and he's very happy and doing all kinds of stuff. Next. I actually have a cat that looked like her. It wasn't my cat. I didn't do that. I thought it would be cool to try that, wouldn't it? Okay, now remember what I said, that if you found a molecule like the cancer-associated PCNA, maybe you could make drugs that target it. And if this works out, I swear I really will know why I was born. So we've done something like this. If I could have the next slide. So what I did was we made an agent that should only attack the cancer cells and leave the normal cells alone. And what this is you're looking actually at pancreatic cancer cells, and we're showing out the agent, just so I can show it gets in, we made it fluorescent. So you're looking at the agent getting into the nuclei of the cell. Because, you know, that's like where the DNA is. It needs to work there. My machine's in there and all that. So cool. But here's the best part. If I could have the next slide. Is you're looking at percent cell death. This is actually in leukemia cells. And the yellow line is this agent killing off the leukemia cells. If I could have the next slide. I'm almost on the home stretch here, guys. Trust me. I told you you're going to love this stuff, right? Don't you feel like you could go home and talk to people about this? Okay. So that molecule that I just was talking about that killed the leukemia cells is called a peptide. And don't worry too much what it is about, but it has a certain shape. And actually, if you were to look at the shape of my peptide, it actually looks like my hand. I am not joking. And I thought, so if I wanted to make a small molecule, it kind of has to hold a certain shape. So then I started poking around in the pCNA molecule or protein, because that's what I do. I'm a geek. We once talked about this earlier, that we were total nerds. And I'm just somebody who sits in front of the computer going, I love the shape of this protein. Okay. But anyway, you're looking at pCNA, and here's where my peptide is, that I think I was talking about. It looks like a little hand. And that's when I realized that the peptide helped to form a cavity in the protein. And I went, if I could find a compound that fit in this cavity, that should muck up this protein's action in a cancer cell.